Hey, this is Matt Vojek, and this is the Creating Business Podcast. Each episode, I sit down and talk to a guest from the creative industries of advertising and marketing about work they've done for a business and their thought process behind all their decisions. By digging deep into projects and the decisions made, we unearth new insights and ideas about creating amazing work that moves the needle for businesses. This is the Creating Business Podcast. Alright, this episode is going to be a little different where I am going to talk about another one of my projects. The project in question this week is Making Midwest. So, Making Midwest is a 3-day creative conference held right here in Columbus, Ohio. And this year it'll be on July 26th through the 28th. July 26th, we're going to have what we call Creative Business School. We're going to have 5 teachers teach all day long from 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m., I believe. Each person is going to teach a different topic of going into creative business ownership, creative entrepreneurship, and we're going to talk about all the different pieces of kind of what it takes to be able to go from leaving a stable job, right at the beginning of the day. We're going to learn about marketing. We're going to learn about some of the financial side of things, some of the contracts, legal stuff. And then we're going to learn about having a side project. And then to wrap the day out, we'll have someone speak about how to essentially make your own creative agency, hiring people and talking about kind of how to go further with a business. So that's just Friday. Then on Saturday and Sunday, we have 12 presenters both of those days combined. And each person is in a different creative industry, and each person is going to essentially talk about, they're going to talk about some of their struggles, some of their creative struggles that they've had, some of the stuff that might be pretty recent to them, things that they just recently overcame, and then talk a little bit about their creative process. The idea behind Making Midwest is that a designer can learn from a chef. A writer can learn from an animator. And that's what we're basically doing is filling the room with people of different creative skill sets to kind of break the echo chambers that exist in individual creative industries. And by doing that, we kind of help people be able to think outside of the things that they've always been taught. And, I'm a firm believer in that idea of learn from people that aren't necessarily in your industry, because there's a lot to learn from those things, especially in other creative industries. And then also during this, we're going to have food trucks. We're going to have the Game of Creativity competition, which is 3 rounds of creative competition. Everybody can sign up. Well, up to 40 people will be able to sign up at the beginning of the day. And then we're going to do 3 rounds. There are going to be 2 rounds on Saturday. Basically, after the first round, the top 8 go on to the second round. And then those top 4 from there will face each other in the finals at the very end of the day on Sunday. Now, in each one of these, we're going to be using the Game of Creativity, which is another one of the projects that I have talked about on this little podcast. If you go back a few episodes, you'll learn more about that. But essentially, it's a tool to help you be more creative, help you think a little bit differently than you might have without the help of these cards. So we draw these cards, and then we have people make things based on mystery materials. They have no idea what the materials are, so they walk in a room, and then they don't know until we flip over the cards first, and then everybody walks in the room, and we start a timer. I can't remember the exact time on all the events or on all the rounds just yet, but I'm pretty sure the first round is like 15 minutes, and then the next one's like 20 or 25 minutes. And then they have like 30 or 35 minutes in the finals. And that finals is going to be on the main stage. Last year, it was just a ton of fun. We definitely had to do it again this year. And we have some fun surprises for that. We're also going to have a bunch of vendors that you can talk to and kind of learn more about some of the businesses around town. And we'll have live screen printing. We'll have mural painting. We'll have some music. It should be just, I mean, really what I'm calling this is like, it's a creative festival. It's just a fun thing to go to just experience creativity and to meet awesome people, basically. So that's basically Making Midwest kind of in a nutshell. And I guess I'll take a little bit of time here to kind of give some of the backstory on Making Midwest. I'm asked this question very often, so if this seems a little scripted, it's because I've talked about it at least 1,000 times. So kind of taking a step back to the very beginning of Making Midwest, it was whenever I first came to Columbus in 2014 or 2015, I can't remember exactly, 2014. I didn't know anybody whenever I came to Columbus. Before this, I was in Los Angeles for a few years, and then before this, I was in Pittsburgh for a few years, then before that, I'm from Cleveland area. So whenever I came to Columbus, I was like, okay, well, I need to become part of the creative community here. That's one of the things that I learned in all the places that I was at, was the first step is become part of the community. Learn about it as much as you can and just meet people. So that's what I did, pretty shortly after I got here, I set a goal of I want to meet 26 people in a year. Every 2 weeks, I wanted just to meet somebody for just a random cup of coffee and just kind of just chat about what they do. And that's really the only goal that I had. It wasn't like a sales thing at all. It was just I need to know people if I want to become part of the community. And I'm not exactly the kind of person that walks into an event by myself and doesn't know anybody. Because if I do, I just sit there in the corner. I'll sit on my phone, just like a lot of other people do. And that's just not the way that I like to, I guess, meet people. It's much easier if you know some people in the room already. So that's basically what I did. Is I tried to meet people individually that were in those rooms, so that whenever I did walk into those kinds of places, it wasn't so damn awkward for me. And so my goal was 26 people in over the course of a year, and I got to 26 probably around I think March or April, and over the course of the year I think I met with probably like 60 or 70 people. It was something pretty high. But over the course of that year, I was like, now I want to get those people in the room with each other. Like there's, this person I talked to had a really great conversation with, and we were talking about like this subject. And so was that person. Like I would love to see just those two people talk to each other and see what happens. Like it just seemed like a fun idea to kind of create these collisions between people that probably wouldn't have ever met before. So I came up with the idea to, initially I called it the Creative Production Meetup. I started out as like a little thing I wanted just to try to get people together, and rented out a back room of a bar and invited a bunch of other animators. And actually, you know what, before I kind of go here, I'll take a step back, because it was probably about a month before that where I was invited to this dinner of other animators. And we all started like asking each other questions like, well, what do you do for like legal stuff on this? What does your contract say for this? Like how many rounds of revisions do you give? Like we started really going in depth with certain things like that. And it was immediately right then and there where I was like, there's a ton of value behind just getting people together and let them kind of work some stuff out. So that's what started the Creative Production Meetup. And again, it was mainly just like animators and people in film around town that I just wanted to kind of get together. And at that first event, I was hoping to get about 60 people, and we got about 10. So immediately I was kind of like, oh, this is really too bad. Like, it's cool, but I wanted a lot more people than this. So I don't know, like I was kind of a little down about it, but then I realized like while I'm there, I'm like, these people are all having an amazing time right now. Like it's kind of working. These people that didn't know each other before are now like being introduced to each other at this kind of small event. And they loved it. So I was like, okay, as long as people like it, I'll keep doing it. But I guess the thing about me is that things either need to grow or just I need to stop doing them altogether. There's only one of two ways things need to go. If things just kind of stay at a certain level, I'm not really interested so much. So I try to grow everything that I basically do. And this was definitely no exception, where I decided that like, okay, I'm going to keep doing it, but we're going to keep kind of tinkering with the format and try to figure out how to get 60 people in a room. So I started doing this every 3 months. And the second event, 3 months later, again, back room of a bar, we got about 14 or 15 people. But again, like just the vibe of everyone kind of talking to each other, everybody was finding like real value in this. So I wanted to kind of keep going again. But at the end of that event, at the end of that second one, a friend of mine said like, this is really great, but I feel like there should be like some structure to everything. Like there should be something that we do. And that kind of gave me the idea to start having presenters. My goal was, okay, at the third event, I was like, all right, I'm going to have one person present. And we'll kind of, everybody will hang out. It'll be like a sort of like a networking thing, but I've never called them that. And then, we'll listen to somebody talk, and then we'll just kind of continue talking afterwards. Give a little bit of structure to things. And I asked 4 people to present, and expecting just one of them at least to say yes. All 4 of them ended up saying yes. I guess 3 because I was one of the presenters. So I had 4 people that need to present, and we had about 2.5 hours to kind of do it. So during this time, we were doing these as like a Tuesday night kind of thing. And so I was like, all right, well, the format needs to be you don't talk very long because we don't have that much time to talk. So kind of establish some of the rules, some of which we still have now of like the presentation format. This year, we're actually expanding a little bit to giving people an hour, including questions and stuff like that. So they might be 30 to 40 minutes and then questions afterwards. But that's just another one of the kind of experiments that I'm trying here, and we'll see how it kind of goes. So that was the third event. We had about 30 people show up, and I was like, all right, now something's starting to happen. At the fourth event, we had 50 people show up. At the fifth event, we had about 65, 75 people show up, and right there is whenever things started getting a little bit serious for me whenever it comes to Making Midwest. Also, that third event is whenever we started calling it Making Midwest, and that's whenever I also wanted to open it up to other creative professionals. And just because, again, the value of getting outside of those echo chambers that normally exist. So after doing that, I decided it was at that event where I was like, okay, we got that. Now what's next? So I decided to run a Kickstarter to try to turn this into an annual conference. I figured that if we can get enough support, then it's clearly something needed in the community. And also over this time, I started noticing a lot of other groups that were doing monthly or quarterly events, and I was like, we don't really need any more of that. But what we could use is like a big, like annual type event that gets people in from out of town. So that's kind of what I decided to sink my teeth into at this point. So I ran this Kickstarter, and the goal was to raise $16,000. And after 30 days, I raised $8,000. Which, if you know anything about Kickstarter, that means you don't get anything. So this was, I don't know, it was really disappointing, honestly, because I really thought that, I really thought that we had the support of the community to do something like this. But at the same time, like, I'm not able to raise the money that it takes to be able to make that jump just yet. So I had to, I going into it, I was kind of like, okay, if we don't raise any money, it's okay, it's cool, because I understand, like, it's not it's not really needed. Like, there's no offense. Like, it's just, if it's not needed, then I'm not going to spend my time on it. And I was like, and then the other possibility is that we raise the money, and awesome, we are going for it. What I didn't anticipate was getting to the exact halfway point. And that made me ask a lot of questions where it's like, well, that doesn't really answer the question of like, is it needed or is it not needed, or wanted by people? So I decided at this point that I was going to kind of hold off on it for just a little bit and try to think on it a little bit more of how I was going to make this happen. Like, I was already determined before the Kickstarter that, like, okay, this is the next step. It's just, how do we get there? Kickstarter didn't work, so kept on doing the quarterly events, and we were doing really good on attendance. And again, each event we had 4 people present, about a half an hour each person. And after about, I think we did 9 events total like that, where I decided to take that information that I got from Kickstarter and decide that, okay, if I can raise $8,000, like, how can I make this event happen for just $8,000? Which, if you know anything about event planning, a lot of conference type things like this, people are usually in the $50,000 to $100,000 range to be able to put something like this on. So $8,000 was not very much at all, but I still had confidence again that, okay, if I just made sure all of the expenses didn't go over $8,000, then we'll be totally fine. And I was super lucky during this time. Like, I found a venue that was willing to go cheaper. This was the year that we had Aaron Draplin, and he's like, I don't care. Like, whatever you need to do to get me there, let's do that. And like, just all the presenters, just how they came together. We had, so it was after I announced it at the 9th Making Midwest quarterly event. We did, it was about 6 months later where the first event was, and that was in July of 2017. So 3 years ago, basically. And, even at that time, it was super scary to announce something like that, because I'm like, again, like, that's, I got to put my own money into something like this. And it's a risk, but it's a risk that I really felt was needed. And, so over this time, I'm like, I was super nervous, but at the same time, like, coming up with the plans for all this stuff and trying to find the cheapest way to make it happen. Because again, the budget being $8,000, most of that going to the venue, it's trying to really be creative financially to be able to make something like this happen. So we ended up having about 33 presenters over the course of 2 days, which was way too much. But this first year, putting it on, that was one of the greatest moments of my life, honestly. The event went awesomely. Like, it went great. We had I think we had about 150, maybe 200 people show up, somewhere in that area. And right at the end, like, again, just moment-wise, like, I walked up on the stage, said thank you to everybody, and just looking out, it's like, wow, like, that was something that took years. Like, I had that idea so long ago. It took years to kind of make it happen, so it was super rewarding to see that. And again, that was in 2017, so after that, I'm like, all right, now we got to do something bigger. Like, we got to grow up a little bit now. Like, let's go ahead and basically take that budget that we had that year before, how much we made that year before, and that's our new budget for the next year. So that kind of established this little pattern financially. And going into that second year, we're, again, like, able to pay people this time. And I don't know, just the whole city came together, and we had probably close to 200 people at that one. And I believe that this is, that last year we started really finding the voice for this event. And, coming into to this year right here, like, I'm super happy with all the plans that we have for this upcoming event. And that nervousness is still there for sure. But I'm super excited just to share with everybody what we've been working on, and to get people into Columbus from surrounding states, We have people coming in from as far away as St. Louis. We have people from Michigan, Indiana, Tennessee. That's what's been super rewarding for me is seeing that it's kind of working. Like we're getting people here. One of my goals early on was, seeing that people are having conferences in other, I don't know, on the coast, like New York and Los Angeles, and people flock from all over the country to go to those places. Well, my goal is I want to get people to flock to the Midwest, Let's get people from Los Angeles and New York to come to the Midwest, come to Columbus and see the amazing stuff that's happening here. And not all of what we're doing, like not all the presenters are from all over the Midwest. And so are the people as well. So it's really the mission of Making Midwest is to highlight what it is that we're doing here in the Midwest. Not necessarily to shit on everybody else, but to show that we are doing something amazing too. And we don't always need to think the grass is always greener and to always be looking to those places as like kind of the places to be. So as I was saying, like before I came here, I was in Los Angeles, and that was the thing for me. It was, as a kid from Ohio, I thought that I had to go to Los Angeles to be successful, and I think that's just a silly idea to think that geography is what's going to make you successful. I don't know. I always thought that was what I had to do. Now, I certainly don't regret the experience that I had there, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter where you live. If you can make something special, then that's what you need to do wherever you need to be. And I'll tell you right now that trying to make it there, it's a lot more expensive. It's harder to take a risk there. So that's kind of the story of Making Midwest, and kind of brings us up to date here. And as far as like the people that I worked with to get here, I certainly did not do this by myself. There's been a bunch of people that have been involved, some of them early on, and I don't know, it's just, I guess that's the thing that's been really crazy about all this stuff, is seeing the people that stand up and say, whatever you need, I'm here to help. And it's kind of a difficult idea at first, because now I had all these people that are willing to help, and I didn't know exactly how they were supposed to help. But some big names that I definitely want to mention right now. Charles Harrison. It was probably the first or second event. He stood up and he's like, I want to be involved. Like, whatever I can do, I'm going to do it. Another person is Brian Garvin. He definitely helped a lot with us trying to figure out how to go from a smaller event to a bigger one. I have a coordinator. Her name is Hannah Ward, and she's been helping with a lot of the communication stuff. So it's really, at this point, it's kind of just a team of two that does a lot of the planning, and then we have a bunch of day of volunteers that kind of do their part of really helping a lot, because obviously I can't just do this whole thing by myself. And so there's a ton of people. I feel like I'm forgetting some names here. I'm really sorry about that for anybody of those that are listening. But really just know that, like, I certainly did not do this by myself. And I don't know, it's been a lot of fun to work with the community and trying to build something special for all of us. And so one of the questions that I like to ask people, and I'll ask myself here, is at what point did you think this was going to be special? And for me, it was the very first quarterly event that we did, whenever I had those 10 people in the room. While it was a little frustrating, seeing the faces of everybody and just seeing how that night went, of just getting people together and seeing that there's so much value in it for everybody, I knew, while I was sitting there, that this was something special that I needed to keep growing. And I guess just overall, I want to say, this is not my full-time job. This is quite literally a passion project, where I'm not an event planner. I run a motion design company. This is something that I do on the side, and I do it because I believe in it, and I'm trying to create the place that I want to live in, honestly. And I want there to be, in the place that I live in, I want there to be an event, an annual event that gets people in from all over the place and supports and highlights the people that don't normally get the recognition. That's one of my favorite parts about Making Midwest, is putting people on a stage that don't normally get the stage to stand on. These people are amazing, extremely talented people that have worked so hard for what they're able to do and what they have. And to give them a stage, honestly, is one of the coolest things that I can do. One of the things that I'm often asked is like, how, or like, they're like, how did you find these people? Like, all these people have like had these amazing talks to give. Honestly, I don't know. I guess the one thing that I really believe is that everybody has a story, especially here. And I don't know. It's really just giving them that stage to tell that story. Yeah, so let's see here. I guess I'm going to wrap this up by talking about what's next with Making Midwest. The truth is, I don't know. Every year, it's taking this a little bite at a time, figuring out what worked, what didn't work, how do we want to grow this. But the mission will always stay the same. Of we want to grow the creative community in the Midwest. It's really that simple. Someday it might become a traveling event. I don't know. I have a lot of plans for next year, and you're going to have to wait for that. Yeah. Some of the big things that I think that people can take away from this is that idea that you can start things super small and let it grow by itself a little bit more organically than your dreams would kind of guess, I suppose. Where everybody, they have an idea and they're like, all right, I'm going to do this thing. Like a lot of other people, I believe, would have walked in that first event, said, I want to get 60 people, and only get 10, and then they would have stopped. Whereas, I don't know, I guess I was curious enough to kind of keep going and figure out what does it take to get 60 people in a room. And I think that a lot of it had to do with because I was super passionate about making that happen. I don't know, it's passion, and it's doing the things that feel rewarding to you. But let me finish this first point, I guess, first, where it's taking the time that it takes to make something great, to focus on it, to spend time on it, and to just work on it constantly, not expecting it to just blow up and go viral. It's expecting it to just grow slowly. It's been so much more rewarding building something like this from scratch and telling the story that this started from just a few people at a dinner and then 10 people in a room at a bar. It's been way more rewarding to tell that story than to tell the one of like, oh, I just put it on Twitter and it blew up. Certainly that would have been the easier route to go. But I learned a lot about this, and I'm able to put something together that again, we're tinkering with this every single year. It's, okay, what worked, what didn't work, how many presenters do we have now? Like, who do we want to get to present? And it's listening to the people that are coming to this thing. Like, I very much believe that Making Midwest is owned by the community. It's not really owned by me. I don't know, I guess I feel like I'm kind of like the leader in the meeting that just makes the final decisions, but I let everybody at the table, and I want to hear what everyone has to say, and I want to take this somewhere where everyone thinks it's beneficial for everybody, and again, just kind of tinkering with things. So I guess my other recap point here is to do the things that you're passionate about. It doesn't even matter that this is an event, and I say I'm not an event planner, but I'll be an event planner to make something happen. I'll be an accountant to make something happen, and I think that's what it takes to do things like this. You have to be willing to put on all the different hats, even the ones that you're not comfortable with. Going out, trying to get sponsorship is super uncomfortable sometimes, but that's what it takes. We need money to be able to do this, and that's one of the biggest things that we do. And like the sponsors that we get, they get it. Like they want the same thing that I want. They want to build the community here in the Midwest. They want They want the Midwest to be known as a creative hub of talent, like of talented people. And that's what we're all trying to do. So finding the sponsors to be able to do this it's uncomfortable, honestly, asking for money from people, but that's what it takes, and that's what I'm gonna do. And that's never gonna change. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just whatever you need to do to make your idea come true is what you got to do. You don't always get the people that can do all the different things, and then you have a team of 20 that can do things, you know? Sometimes you got to learn things for yourself, and then either find a quicker way to do it, or then teach somebody else how to do that thing, and then build like that. And Making Midwest is about 5 years old now, and people ask, like, did you see this, like, kind of happening over 5 years? Hell yeah, I did. Like, that's what the point was. Like, in the very beginning, in the very first talk that I gave at that third event, I talked about how I wanted to turn this into an actual event where people from all over the country came to. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted this to be a unique, creative event. Not a design conference, not an animation conference, not a film conference, but something where just creativity was valued, and we'd talk about that idea, and we try to be able to figure out how those things are useful in our own individual circumstance. So that's all I got. Hope you liked this episode, and yeah, love you, bye.